point, I believe we are ready. Well, we have another minute to wait.
I have the top of the hour.
All right, fantastic. Let me start the recording then.
This meeting is being recorded.
And Chair Brandwein, the meeting is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, fellow board members and the public who have joined us today, as well as the staff from DCA and our own optometry team. I'm Sid Brandwein. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. And I'd like to take roll call, please. Dr. Turetsky?
Good morning, Sid. Good morning, Jeff. I am here.
Good morning. And Dr. Garcia?
Good morning, all present.
Great, thank you. I'd now like to say hello to Shara, and if she would like to introduce any of the team. Executive Officer Shara Murphy, are you on?
Hi, Sid. This is Mark. Shara and Sheree are both on a call with the DCA Executive Office at the moment. I believe they're intending to get on as soon as they can.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. So we have Mark joining us today. Thank you. I'd like to open it up for public comment for items not on the agenda, please. Moderator, if you could please open up for the public.
Certainly, and thank you. We have opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx, and we're sharing instructions on the screen. If you would like to make a public comment, a suggestion for items not on the agenda, you can click on the question mark icon, usually in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen. Or if you're on a mobile device, the 3-dot other options icon will lead you to the Q&A button. You can type the word comment into that text box and hit send. Comments will be taken in the order received, and there will be a 2-minute time limit. I'll give people a moment to locate and type in that screen. And I see no requests for public comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please, moderator. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the next item on the agenda are our minutes from the February 25th meeting of Consumer Protection and Public Relations and Outreach Committee. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes? And then we'll open it up for public comment.
Sid, it's Dave. I have some questions or some modifications to the minutes.
All yours.
Okay, page 3 of the minutes. Let me go to it because now my computer's freezing. 2 and 3. Okay. Comment that I had made towards just below the midpoint. It says Dr. Turetsky stated he knows the consumer notice. That portion right there must be in 14-point font. My comments, for what it's worth, are sort of taken and moved around in places here. It says that I know that the Department of Managed Healthcare experienced issues when they printed forms which were not size that was specified. The Department of Managed Healthcare did not experience issues. The company for whom I worked experienced issues with the Department of Managed Healthcare because they did not have the proper font in their documents. And there is a point here where Mark mentions that he's unaware of any that there's no size requirement in the application, but this isn't for the application. This is for the actual notice itself. It says Mr. Johnson stated that there are no size requirements that he is aware of regarding the application, and this is size requirements for the notice given out to the consumers, not the application. So that's my first comment there. On pages 6 and 7, It's a small point, but apparently I am referred to as Dr. Turetsky and Mr. Turetsky, just so we know that my father is not attending these meetings. It should be all the same. So Dr. Turetsky, Mr. Turetsky, whatever you want it to be, it should be the same in all the cases. And that's on 6 and 7. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Dr. Turetsky. So we can do one of two things. We can ask staff to modify the minutes and have Mark come off mute to discuss, or we can hold the minutes, have them corrected, and approve at the next meeting. What is the board's preference? Dr. Garcia, Dr. Turetsky, yes.
I don't see these as major changes that have any real effect, so I would recommend that we just make those modifications and accept the minutes with those modifications.
I second that.
Okay, and if we could have Mark come off of mute. I know this is recorded, so you'll be able to replay in order to capture the requested edits. Do you feel comfortable making these edits or have any questions?
No, those are good changes, and we will make the changes to the minutes before they are posted that Dr. Turetsky set out.
Okay, thank you. So noted on the minutes, the request for changes. With that, does the board wish to make a determination to go ahead and review and approve? Is there a motion on the floor?
Yeah, I had that motion to approve. Do we need public comment?
Yes, we do. But I was going to ask Dr. Garcia, did you have any comments on the minutes?
No, I don't. I would second the motion to approve them as amended by Dr. Turetsky.
Okay, let's open it up for public comments if we could, please, moderator.
Certainly, at the direction of the chair, I've opened the Q&A feature of WebEx. We're sharing instructions on the screen. If you'd like to make a public comment on the minutes from the February 25th meeting, please click on the question mark icon, usually in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen, and type the word comment into that text box and hit send. If you are on a mobile device, you can click on the 3-dot other options icon to find the Q&A button. We'll give people a moment to locate and type. And I see no request for public comment. Shall I close that Q&A feature?
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor, so we can go ahead and take a vote at this time. Dr. Turetsky?
Aye.
Dr. Garcia?
Aye.
And Ms. Brandwein? Aye. So we have reviewed as amended, though, the minutes from the 25th and have passed with the amendments, please. Item number 4, we're moving into the strategic plan items. What I propose we do, first of all, I'd like to state the goals for the public that has the Consumer Protection and Public Relations and Outreach Committee tags or responsibilities to these goals, and then engage in a conversation relative moving down the list of the subtasks. I have some specific questions for staff and also fellow committee members to determine how we might best move forward with future discussions. First of all, the first goal in the strategic plan for 21 through 25 is goal 4 that has been tagged to our committee. And without going through the sub-items, the overall goal 4 is enforcement. The board protects the health and safety of consumers through the active enforcement of laws and regulations governing the safe practice of optometry and opticianary in California. And the other one is Goal 5, and it's broadly outreach. The board proactively educates, informs, and engages consumers, licensees, students, and other stakeholders about the practices of optometry and opticianary and the laws and regulations which govern them. So with those two in mind, and that's not to say that we will not be participating or influencing the others, my hope is that we start with these since they're tagged to us, and then we can hear back from staff either at the board meeting or before the board meeting relative to how other committees are planning to divvy up, if you will, the task items and the key results that they would like to achieve. So we first need to review these objectives, then discuss how we would like to move forward so that we do have some key results that we achieve annually as well as over the 4-year period. So I'm going to pause with that and see if Dr. Turetsky or Dr. Garcia have any comments.
It's Dave. I don't have any specific comments at this point. I would like to have, and I guess we'll get to that, an update from staff as to where we stand on. I think there's only 1 or 2 of these subsections that should be completed at this point or nearing completion, and I'd just like an update on that. But those are my only comments.
Yes, Dr. Garcia, I don't have anything to add as well.
Okay, thank you. So some of the questions that I have for our staff and team more broadly move through each of the key results or objectives that have been listed under the main goals. And under 4.1, which is relative to reviewing the communication process and standard practices, my question is, will staff be sharing the current communication process and standards practices used in enforcement actions for the committee to respond to? So if I could have staff address that, please.
Hi, this is Terry Villarreal, the lead enforcement analyst for the Board of Optometry. I believe that staff would like some direction on what the committee wants to see in relation to the communication process. We can do the work and we can implement whatever plan whatever plan is desired and discussed, but we just need some direction on what the committee wants to see and how you want this to look.
Do we have, Terry, any type of plan currently in place that previously this committee or just staff in general has been using to communicate enforcement, our procedures and our processes, so that we can respond to the consumer protection and probation or rehabilitation, not punishment comment in 4.1?
I am not aware of a communication plan. I know that when we deal with probationers and when we talk with when we deal with enforcement cases in general, we always try to explain what the process is to subjects, those that the complaints are filed against. We try to be very transparent and explain what that process is, and the same way, we do the same thing for complainants. We always offer, and for probationers, we always let them know that we are here to get them into compliance, and we work with them on how they can get there.
Okay.
So, yeah.
How about we request this? If you have standard talking points that you move through when you have, and not you literally use, but staff, staff uses when communicating, if we could see that, please, that would be an excellent starting point. If we do not have anything that's formal, and I would call that our process or procedure, then that is an excellent starting point, is to develop a process so that we're consistent in our messaging, and then the committee can take care of part 2 of the 4.1 as well, which is really focusing on the protection and rehabilitation piece. So if
Okay.
there's nothing that exists, let's pull something together in the way of talking points as well as a standard process. Dr. Turetsky, Dr. Garcia, any comments on 4.1?
No, I think, this is Dr. Garcia, I think the points you're making are valid. But I don't have anything additional to add on 4.1.
It's Dave. It interesting too. I just realized something when you were speaking, Sid, and I looked at the board's website on this. There's nothing on the website. There's nothing that explains to the licensees or to the public that that what we're doing is consumer protection when it comes to citations and enforcement, things like that. It makes it look like it's more punishment. It doesn't really go into consumer protection and probation or rehabilitation on the citations and enforcement actions. It's just an interesting thing that I never even thought of before, and it does require more explanation to the public and to licensees as to what we're doing.
So we have a really good opportunity here if we can capture talking points, put the process together, then we'd be in our starting point of what we want to achieve through these kinds of communications, then to formalize it, and then we can update our website and other channels where we share information regarding enforcement.
Okay, we can do that. I know that
Great.
our website is in line, and I don't know where in line, but it's in line to be reorganized and updated a little, because right now it's a little cumbersome when trying to locate information. But
Okay.
I'm not looking at our citation and enforcement page right now, but maybe we can put, if it's not there already, maybe we can put a little blurb about something about, consumer protection, and our purpose, and, what our mission is. But as I mentioned, I'm not looking at that page of
Right.
our website right now, but maybe we can look into that and make that a little more, not user-friendly, but I don't know.
Focus.
Yeah, focused.
Focused focus
Yeah.
on the why
Yes.
when it comes to enforcement. Great.
Okay.
Okay, so that's a key takeaway for 4.1. So thank you. And
Sid,
yes.
one thing that and Jeff can probably confirm or deny this, but back in the old days when we used to get mailings from the board, the first thing that myself and every one of my colleagues would go to would be the enforcement actions, because people want to see what's going on so they don't make the same mistakes that others may have made. If we are sending out on the general email that goes out to everybody that's listed with the board's website, if we could send something out that goes over enforcement actions, but also gives an explanation of why we're doing this and what the board's responsibility is to the public and all those things,
Yep.
it will be read, because that's something that people will always look at just to make sure they don't make the mistakes that others have made. And it's just a way to get people's attentions instead of just saying, well, it's another board communication, and they just delete it. And is that the way it was with you, Jeff, when you would get mailings, things on that order?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I used to look at those back in the day, but I haven't noticed that in years. So I'm not sure if that list is still going out.
You have to dig it up on the board's website. That's the thing. But when it went out, it got everybody's attention. And now if you have to go on the board's website and dig to find a list of 2021 citations and enforcement actions.
I
So we
think,
have an I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh,
Sherry?
no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No worries.
You know, I was going to say part of our outreach plan, it is goal number 6 for us to send out listserv emails and also more like using social media more in relation to getting the word out about how to stay compliant and not come into violation. I know that social media is a big, using social media is a big thing right now, and that's also a plan of ours to come and to get our probationers and our licensees into compliance, and you know, just so they're aware of what you know, what we're doing to help, you know, to help licensees and probationers. And also, as it was mentioned, that we are going to be sending out quarterly emails that illustrate the consequences and infractions, and, you know, as I mentioned, in post social media notices. And that is
Okay.
can be found under goal number 5.51.1.
Okay. So let's start with first the messaging, the purpose, the message, and we'll review that together with a process and talking points. Then the committee, after its review, will ask that we work with staff to update the current site, integrate it into the site version 2 that we're waiting in line for DCA to support us with. And then when we are ready for a social media campaign that's tied to another goal as well, we can blend all this together. Let's take then the one step at a time with first the what and why, together with the process and talking points, if we could, please. And then we'll revisit this.
Okay, so you want to see the
Great.
what and the why and talking points, you said.
Right. And
Okay.
first, tying enforcement to consumer protection. What is the statement that what is the point we're trying to make? How is that tied together so that it is about changing behaviors to better align with protecting the consumers versus straight, here's a list of folks being punished. The objective of 4.1 is to shift the conversation some. So if you can pull those things together first, then we'll be able to coach and guide.
Okay.
Okay, so then on 4.2, it's the member side of things, specific to training new board members. This is important. I'd like to get 4.1, if my colleagues agree, as the priority, and then 4.2, a training for new board members. Perhaps staff can start to pull together what that might look like so that we can react to it and provide recommendations relative to length, delivery, presentation, timing, et cetera. Dr. Garcia?
Yeah,
Dr.
I agree.
Tereski,
Training.
thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. Training is important, and I'll speak for myself. Coming onto the board, you know, there really wasn't any formalized training. It was kind of sink or swim, and you know, you have to kind of reach out for help from the other board members. But if there was a little more, there was a formalized training available, even for those members that are sitting on the board like myself, I would definitely think it would be very beneficial to get everyone up to speed faster, make us more effective as board members, and give us all kind of an equal playing field in terms of information. So I that for me is probably one of the highest priorities to make us a better board.
Dr. Tereski?
I'll just echo Jeff's comments. It took me a long time to really understand what we were tasked with doing, and it should be something which we learn when we're first appointed to the board instead of on-the-job training, which will take months or maybe a year or so to really get the hang of it. So if new board members can know what's going on from the start and the board's tasks, I think that would be a great idea.
And again, it starts with the purpose and the alignment to consumer protection, et cetera. So 4.2 will flow after 4.1. So that 4.1, we have our purpose statement of what we're trying to achieve and how we're doing it and what we're saying, et cetera, because that will be part of the training.
If I may, Chair Brandwein and members, it's Shar Murphy, Executive Officer. So I just want to remind folks, right, that we 2 board meetings ago began doing those trainings. And so it's our metered way of staff being able to develop those resources and disperse the information. And then, of course, at the end of those 2 sessions, we've had an opportunity to talk about, how the information was presented, what topics are needed to be spoken to next. So we have started developing that training resource. And you'll remember that it's the sessions that we've been doing during board meetings that Terry has ably led for us. And so we're already beginning progress on those training resources. So we're trying to do those in tandem. I think that the what and the why, and those clear talking points on why we pursue enforcement in order to bring about consumer protection. I think that those could certainly be developed in tandem, and that's something we can bring back to the committee. But do want to remind folks that we are working on those training resources and providing those opportunities for new board members like Dr. Garcia and Ms. Sims to be to have the dialogue with existing membership to talk about what is our base enforcement process, what does it look like when we decide to do suspension of practice, an interim suspension of practice, right? So you'll recall those sessions that we've been going through. So I definitely think that the staff can concurrently take a look at this, the changes to the website, the what and the why, and those talking points. But we're also, you'll recall, working on those training development, or training resource development as well.
Thank you. And I believe what we're hearing from the board is that we need step 1 first before we walk into a board meeting and we're given materials and engage in a conversation. So new board members need something a little bit more than just listening to try and figure it out. So if we can look at a couple slides, for example, of what it is, what types of enforcement actions are taken for what reasons, it at least gives them, I'm going to call it a glossary to get started, or a sheet to reference. So when they come to the meeting, they're grounded a little bit more. Dr. Garcia, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Turetsky.
Shara, just a thought. Because we have had a couple presentations like this at the most recent board meetings, is it possible to extract those from the DCA's telecast and put those into a format where new board members can review that as part of their onboarding, so they can hear what's already been presented to the board and give them a running start on what's going on?
You're inside our heads, Dr. Turetsky. So yes, exactly.
I'm sorry. Oh, that's scary.
No, we're synergistic, right? I think that's the thing that's great about that. So as staff has developed those PowerPoint presentations, that's exactly what we're doing. We're putting together a deck that new board members will be able to look through. And I think that you're right that some of those discussions too, the clips could be a great enforcement or a great reinforcement tool to that material. So our intention, right, is that we're giving staff an opportunity to create these decks for the conversations to be had with current board members. And then if you'll recall, at the end of that process, within our strategic plan, it's our intention to say, okay, board, these are the decks that have been created that you've talked through. How do we better package these so that we do have this tool for new board members as they step in?
Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, so let's move on then. Since outreach is a natural outgrowth of 4.1 and 4.2, let's move into Goal 5, which is outreach. And the first item up is to evaluate outside resources. And right below it, it is the utilization and measurement of social media. So my first question of staff for 5.1
If I
and
may,
5.2.
Chair Brandbein, I'm so sorry, if I may, I'm just realizing, trying to use all of the opportunities for board brain power. I think that what we want to do on 4.2 is to bring to this committee the list of topics and the scheduling that we have. So if we could you would permit us putting on a future committee agenda, the list of training decks that we're developing and the timing within which we intend to bring those to the board. I think that this committee here could give us some really good input on what really should go next after, we've done the initial, we've talked about some of the hot button issues. The ability for the board to immediately suspend practice was one of those things. Just keep coming back to that. But I think that for 4.2, I think it would be really helpful for staff to bring to all of you. This is the list, this is the schedule for training. Let us know if this is the flow that makes sense. And then what are the really important underpinnings of those broad topics that you as a committee think the board and new members will want to see? Is that an okay action item for us from 4.2?
It is, but it needs to be second. We need a very basic briefing for new board members, what enforcement is, particularly the public, in addition to the professional members, what enforcement is, how it pertains to optometry, and walking through so that when trainings come up and those trainings have specific titles and subjects, et cetera, they're able to correlate it in the space of enforcement overall.
Yes.
Because they're walking in and they are being given very tactical, and it's a combination of reporting / training, and it's confusing.
So I think what I hear is that our first quarterly email should appear at the beginning of the year. It should include a what and why. This is why we do enforcement. It's about consumer protection, not about punishment. These are the things that we tell licensees when there's a complaint sent against them. Here are the recent infractions that have been, pursued by the board. And then here's this deck that tells you, take a look at this PowerPoint deck or this PDF of slides that tell you the enforcement process basics. I think we just built our first email that we should have out at the beginning of the year. And does that sound like, I think, a start to what we kind of are looking for? It's that communication to public and board that this is the mindset of the board when doing enforcement. This is the way we go about enforcement. And here's background information to better understand it.
That's fine. We still need a new board member onboarding material. And that's not an email that goes out at the beginning of the year. It's something that is handed to new board members as a part, as almost an appendix to the BMONT training they go through that helps them understand what enforcement means for optometry. Again, before we start going into all of these details and providing reports.
Hi, this is Terry.
So yeah, and we're spending a lot of time on this, and we've got a full agenda here. So, Terry, go right ahead.
Would it be okay if we put together, or we put together the PowerPoint presentation for new board members that was presented at the August board meeting? We can refine that more, and we can make that look. We can even add even more details, so brand new board members can get an idea of when complaints come in and just the basic process of enforcement. We can add more slides about what enforcement is and kind of dumb it down, for a lack of a better term, so new board members will understand what the enforcement unit does and what her purpose is?
Yes,
Would that
it
be
needs to be
acceptable?
simplified. There needs to be a front end to the training so that when you come to board meetings and you get onto a specific topic, board members understand where that topic fits into the broader scheme of things.
So maybe this PowerPoint presentation can be a part of their new board member orientation.
Correct.
Right. So
Okay.
Yes.
it would become an appendage to our board member handbook. And that's exactly what we're looking to do. So we're developing a slide deck so that then you've got an enforcement specific board member handbook that is given to new members when they come to be a part of the board.
Great. Okay.
We can do that.
Well, great. So if you can, and then take care of the other action items too for the next meeting, that would be super as well on 4.1 and 4.2.
Okay.
So on 5.1 and 5.2, will staff be ready to report on current practices and baseline metrics for this committee to benchmark and launch from?
So on the call,
Shara, Terry.
yeah, definitely. Sorry, Shara. So Mark, can you speak to, so Mark Johnson, our policy analyst, is responsible for our outreach. Of course, you know, we all know Mark's got tons of jobs, and he works with our technical staff, office technical staff, particularly Michelle Shabir, in order to do a good deal of our outreach. Mark, can you just kind of talk to what it is that we do now? And then we can, I think, better understand the sorts of benchmarks that the committee is looking for.
Surely. So with 5.1, you know, as a note here, our first task under 5.1.1 is a quarterly report on social media posts and trends. We actually began to develop that, and actually it was included as part of our August 31st board meeting. It was one of the executive officer reports. It was called the social media report. We did not do a verbal presentation on it, but in that report, we included just a list of all of our various social media posts, and then an explanation of what the post was about, and then just each post, what kind of numbers we had, how many tweets we received, or how many retweets, or how many people interacted with our posts, or something like that. So we've actually begun to do 5.1.1. 5.2, you know, I think maybe crosses over with 5.1 a little bit to track engagement on social media website. Again, as part of that first report we gave in August, we did include some of the metrics that is used by the social media folks, by Twitter and Facebook, as to how much engagement we're actually getting from our posts. So we have, in a way, begun some of these first two tasks in 5.1 and 5.2.
Super. That's a really good starting point. And when we read 5.2, it's asking us to evaluate those channels of communication with very specific initiatives that the board has. It may be helpful to pull together a plan where we have our initiatives on the left and across the top the different channels that we're using, and then provide a level of effectiveness based on the metrics that you're gathering from such resources as Twitter, et cetera. Is that something that you can help pull together? Because then that broadly helps us building a communication plan, which, if you then move through some of these other items, require a plan.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea to get us started.
Other board members, Dr. Turetsky, Dr. Garcia, any comments on 5.1, 5.2?
could stay in the comments.
And no comments from myself.
Okay. So the action there will be to start looking at early stage communication plan, tying our key initiatives or messaging in general to specific channels and being able to gauge effectiveness through some metrics. And we should define what that metrics is, like what you pulled from Twitter, et cetera. That would help the board overall and not just the committee understand how our outreach to the public will evolve over this next 4-year strategic plan period. So on 5.3, collaborating with continuing education providers and associations, Shar is doing a great job with this, as are many of the doctors engaged with associations. How does board staff want to tackle 5.3 and utilize this committee?
Hi, this is Terry. I think that board staff will have to discuss this and figure out what is needed in order to accomplish this goal.
Okay, so this one is specific to when things change, whether it's a reg or a law, et cetera. How are we going to communicate that more broadly to our base of optometrists and opticians and provide some training specific to it? So I see it almost as two parts. One is strictly communicating or disseminating, and then the other is more focused on really honing in and getting them to truly understand through training. Is that how, you all see it?
I believe social media could come into play here, and perhaps emails in relation to the changes in law, if there are any. I know that we use listserv to communicate with licensees. So perhaps listserv could be used for this forum also.
And it may be that we create some YouTube videos or something that's on social media that helps educate the public when we do have laws and regs that have been updated that impact the profession and the professionals.
Yes, YouTube videos, that is, we could definitely do that. That would be a great idea.
And that could be culling some of the meeting tapes as well. So it's a double use when you do training and or make announcements specific to a law or reg that has been updated. We may be able to use that and attach it to a couple slides that explain, and then at the end give them further resources where they can go and take them to our site, something.
Okay.
Okay, so
all right.
If you can think about that one. And there are a lot of between 4 and 5. There's a lot here, and I recognize it's over a 4-year period. But once we're done talking through each of these, we'd like to hear too from the staff what you all might propose in the way of schedule and timing. We're not asking for everything to be done Q1 of 22. So. Yes, we'll need to further prioritize once you meet with the other committees as well, and then determine how to distribute workload and the objectives and key results. Shara, we'll task you with that because we're only seeing this through our lens right now and not through the other committees and what they're going to be asking as well. On 5.4.
Sid, it's
Yes.
Dave. Can I just want to make a couple of comments and observations on 5.3.
Okay.
First, and this just goes to how we disseminate information. I know that Shara has made herself readily available to several of the local optometric societies to just be at one of their virtual meetings and answer
Great.
questions and pretty much, be the board's representative. So, because optometrists have a tendency to like to gripe about things that are going on in the profession, and why doesn't the board do something about this? So Shara has reached out to a number of the societies to say, hey, I'll be at your next virtual meeting and I'll answer questions. There has been pretty much no interest by the society members, because it would take up meeting time where they would not be able to get continuing education credits. So it seems like it's a double-edged sword. These folks want to complain to the board and get information from the board, but they're not really willing to do it if there isn't some additional benefit for them in the way of a continuing education unit. It's just a comment. I think it's crazy. I would relish the idea to be able to speak to the person that's overseeing the board and get my questions answered, but it doesn't seem like that's something that folks want to do. That's just one comment. The other comment is this on how communication doesn't seem to be getting out there. I was speaking with one of my classmates who I haven't spoken with in a while, and he was complaining that he had the opportunity to purchase a smaller practice from somebody that was retiring. And he already had 2 practices, and he said there's no way he can have a third practice because he's not allowed to under the regulations for branch office license. And he had no idea that the branch office license no longer exists. So folks are not getting the messages to the changes in legislation and regulations. And I don't know how to reach out to make sure that folks understand what's been changing in the profession. Just 2 comments. I'm not a person who understands social media at all. And, you, Sid, have a phenomenal understanding of social media. So I don't know. We've just got to get better communication with our licensees to get the word out there as to what's going on at the board.
Given Shara's depth of knowledge and her excellent skills communicating and presenting, maybe Shara becomes an influencer, which is a social media term for someone who speaks on behalf and is a recognized expert. If we're able to promote, as in bring forward, some of these trainings. In addition, Shara, if you were to give training, can a continuing education credit be attained by any of the professional members who attend?
I don't know that Shara is on right now with us.
Okay.
I know that she was in a meeting with the executive office, so I don't know that she's on with us. I know that we want to, I know a way for us to get the message out about changes that Dr. Turetsky mentioned is to make our website a little, to have our website be more informative and to be organized better. So if a licensee wants information about how to obtain a statement of licensure or the BOL that Dr. Turetsky mentioned, that they could just go right to our website and get that information quickly. But I know that there's not a lot of, I know that there's some individuals that are not technically savvy, as mentioned. So maybe we can send emails. I know that we do send emails when there's changes in law and that when there's changes that we want licensees to be aware of, but that may not be, but that may not be as effective as we're thinking. So we, you know, so maybe, maybe, we'll have to think about how to get information to licensees easier or quicker, I guess.
And something other than the website.
And something
Because
other than yeah.
Yeah, home pages and will appeal to some, but as new graduating classes come on board, they get their information by other means. So we'll need to think about how do we reach those who aren't looking for the home page.
You know, a lot of the new graduates are young, and they are pretty social. You know, they're really into social media.
Yep.
As opposed to some of the older individuals trying to find, information, and, in order for us to keep them updated on changes, in regulations and what licenses we offer, what certificates we no longer offer. I know that we need to get better at that and come up with a new way of communicating with them.
Yeah, our website, by the time we update it, the information is old. So we need to think of a way to keep the information fresh, and it's almost the urgency of getting it out there, particularly as it pertains to regulations.
Yeah.
So and that would be part of this communications plan. If you can work with Mark then.
Yes, we definitely will.
Great, think that through. It's, the communication plan is going to be comprehensive, and it will be more than just updating our website. It will also be more than social media and looking at one or two. Let's really think outside of the box here, because we have an opportunity and we have a definite need. We have a responsibility to disseminate information on a more timely basis. We have to think how to do that. And I still would like to go back to, if organizations and others can give out continuing education credit, I'd have to look in our regs, et cetera. If our executive officer hosted a course, is there the opportunity for continuing education credit? I don't know, because I don't have that in front of me, but it's, again, something to look at to counter what Dr. Turetsky or Dr. Garcia, I can't remember who said it now, put forward. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Super. So we're making inroads on that. 5.4, I think there's a typo in here, and we're looking for an optician. Is that correct? Is that a typo or anything with a PTICIAN on the end?
Yeah, that's correct. It does say optician. I'm sorry, that should be optician.
Okay, maybe if we're able to update and correct the typos, that would be super.
Absolutely, we will work on that.
Okay. Then, let's see. Also in 5.4, I'm toggling back. This is specific. This outreach plan touches on opticianary overall. And I know Char's been working on very specific action items targeted towards the opticianary community. If we could learn a little bit more about what that outreach plan has been in the past, since probably continuing education was involved in that, and then get all of your ideas of going forward. All of this piggybacks off of a heightened communications plan. For this population in particular, they likely are not used to coming to our website to gather information. They're maybe starting to, so we need to understand where have they been getting their information in the past, but equally as important, where do we want to place information that they can grab for now and in the future. Dr. Garcia and Turetsky, comments on the Opticianary programs?
I'm good, Steve.
Yeah, Jeff, nothing to add on that one.
Okay, so Terry, if you could take that one back too, that would be great.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand. Where does the opticianry program candidates, not candidates, but registrants, where do they get? They could be candidates, you know, I guess. Where do they get their information? If they're not getting it from our website, where are they getting it? I know
And
that
then, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I know that we do use our website. We do refer candidates and registrants to our website, but I know that not all of them are getting information from it. So
And
we'll
still,
look into that.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
because it's, they probably get some of it too from the doctors they work for.
Yes.
Yeah, there's other, so we've got to think more broadly on how to communicate with them and to them.
Okay. I know some of them could get information from each other. I know that definitely is the case for optometry candidates. Just by answering the phone, that is what some of them say. I talked to my friend and, you know, she said or he said, but yeah, we will work on a communication plan for the opticianry community.
Great, thank you.
Terry,
Yes.
Terry, it's Dave. Do you have any contact with California State Society of Opticians, Ruby Garcia's organization?
I don't personally, but I know that staff do have contact with her. It might.
Ruby sends out information to her members on a regular basis, and she's got a pretty big email list that distributes info. So I don't know
Okay.
if you're allowed to, or if it's something that's even worth looking into, is using resources like that to distribute information.
Okay, could you just please remind me?
Let me jump in here real quick. This is Mark. Sorry to interrupt, Terry.
That's okay.
We do talk to, I'm in regular communication with Ruby, and it's very much a two-way communication about different things. So we do utilize that resource pretty extensively, and other resources with the optician community as well.
Great.
Okay, and Dr. Garcia, did you have anything then to add to what they've just added, or you're good?
Yeah, nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so then if we look at 5.5, publish and disseminate enforcement actions to illustrate the consequences of infractions. Would staff have an example of enforcement action reporting for not to the board, but in the way of outreach to the public and to the professional population? Does staff have an example of what enforcement action sharing might look like so that the committee could provide input?
We don't. The only thing that I can think of in relation to this is to just try to get social media in relation, you know, to getting the word out about being compliant as a licensee, but we don't have any information that we can disseminate or publish other than social media messages.
If I may, I'm so sorry, Board Member Shar Murphy, Executive Officer. I had to step off to take a call from the Department of Finance. So our strategic plan here is giving us guidance to create that communication. So I stepped ahead a few steps in talking about that quarterly email, right? So in order to better communicate to licensees the issues of infractions, what we intend to do is to revise that notice process that Dr. Turetsky mentioned earlier, right? It used to go out by mail, but now we send everything out by email, and we support that messaging by using our social media platforms. So what I was speaking to earlier is that by the end of January 2022, we need to have produced our first quarterly email on enforcement that's sent to stakeholders, that's sent to licensees. And what I was working through in you were hearing my mind working as each of the committee members was, giving us, each were giving us kind of what need to be communicated. So what I see is that we are creating this new quarterly email. And what we start this with is the why we do enforcement. That's the first thing we tell everyone. We do enforcement for consumer protection as opposed to punishment. And then we've got another great resource where we go out and talk to our graduates who are going to soon be applicants. And it's basically a PowerPoint slide that says, don't panic if you get contacted by the board. So we'll take some of that messaging and we'll talk about, this is the way, this is how the board will contact you, give us the information, be truthful. This is the way in which we'll engage you. And then the email will continue on and give folks an opportunity to see the most recent infractions. These are some of the things that have been a harm to consumer protection that licensees have been subject to discipline for in the last quarter. And then it's like, we really want you to understand the enforcement process. And so here is a slide deck that we have presented to our board that shows you the basics of our enforcement process. This is how we take our complaints. This is, the follow-up that we do to get accurate, correct, and full information from complainants and from licensees. These are the options that the enforcement staff has to pursue if, whether it be a citation or it be with the formal discipline that the staff can pursue, whether that be a citation or a suspension or probation, and the fact that then each of those decisions has an approval process, right? So staff suggests, it then goes to the executive officer, it then goes through the attorney general's office, and then the board is the final adjudicator. So then we would include that slide deck that helps licensees understand what the process is. And then the next quarter, quarter 2 of 2022, we would do another email out to licensees that's to the same effect, right? This is why we do enforcement. Don't panic when the board contacts you. These are the things that we've recently had to enforce. And here's a reminder to you is an understanding of the enforcement process. And as we've gone through each board meeting and created a new deck, we can continue to put those slide decks, those training decks that we're doing for the board out into the community and in the licensed population so that they begin to understand as well the checks and balances on the process and understand how we ensure that it is about consumer protection and not about punishment of the individual. So the fact that we don't have a way to do that now is part of developing that, is part of the strategic plan so that we can begin to do what the board has asked, which is better communicate to licensees what sort of infractions may cause harm or put their license in danger. And this is the way that we go about doing this. So I apologize that I'm jumping in and jumping out today, but I stepped ahead a few steps in talking about the quarterly email because that's exactly how we're going to begin to educate the licensee population about the infractions that occur, how they should engage with the process, and why we do the process. Does that make sense and answer the questions that were being discussed?
I think to a large part it does, but Dr. Turetsky, any comments, or Dr. Garcia?
It's Dave. I'm good.
This is Jeff. No comment.
Okay, so if we can build off and multi-purpose these training decks and other communications, it will help reinforce and shift. Ultimately, it's about shifting behavior, gaining knowledge, etc. You should be able to achieve some of these goals. Sounds like a great plan.
Excellent. And I apologize that we couldn't have a fuller discussion with the detail of, the action plan is how we intend to put into action the request that the board has given us within the strategic plan and how staff is intending to go about it. So I think that this discussion has been really helpful because I don't think that we had a plan for how we were going to communicate. And I think that understanding on the part of staff, our understanding that we've really got to communicate, we've got to better detail to folks. This is about consumer protection and not punishment. This isn't a vindictive process. It's a process that has many steps and that ensures that the remediation of an infraction is about better licensee behavior, better licensee practice, and not about punishment.
Okay, so I think 5.5 is well on its way. So 5.6, developing the communication plan regarding the importance of children's vision, health, and wellness. Can you give us some insight on what might be ready to go, or has everything gone out from that prior committee's work, or working group rather? It wasn't a committee, it was a working group.
Yeah.
Where are we? Yeah, if you could just give us some background.
Yeah, so we have a couple of different multimedia tools. We developed a fact sheet on, I think it was it's cute, but basically it's like, these are the reasons why young children need to, engage in comprehensive eye exams and how it can help them. We've also got a video that we created in partnership with DCA Communications that can be used. I think what we're kind of at a loss for is we have these kind of, tools that we can use, but we're not sure how the committee and the board would like us to go about doing something that is impactful, right? So we make these tools, we send them out to our listservs, we post them on our website. But, as Dr. Terexi has reminded us many times before, we're still growing our social media presence and our reach on all of that. So really the intention is to talk with the committee today about how we might develop a better plan that isn't one-off tools and that instead is about a long-term change in the conversation, right? I think we've often talked about how we want folks to understand that eye exams, comprehensive eye exams, are just as important as taking your kids to the dentist that first time. So how do we go about communicating to our licensee population, because they can be advocates, and to the public as a whole, the importance of this, and to do it in a way, right, that with our limited resources is still effective and can shift that conversation. And so I think we're here today to talk with the committee if there are any suggestions on how we might go about doing that, or ways that you possibly have seen, right, dental, communicate that message. That might be some of the things that we can take a look at in order to begin developing this communication plan for our specific policy effort.
Have we partnered with school districts before? Specific to a communications plan, not the actual program implementation that was envisioned for early on?
No. And you know what? I think too, not just school districts, I don't know that we've ever done a communication plan that, I think we for a long time have tried to work through the Department of Education to get a notice that goes out, but that's something that's, so structural, right? We're talking about the bureaucratic process of what's allowed to be sent to every family through the, initial student application package each year. But we haven't worked with like the Department of Ed's communications department to think about, okay, what are some of the ways that you communicate to educators, that you communicate to parents, that we could possibly give you messaging for? So developing a partnership with the Department of Education or with a few key school districts is not something we've done before. That's an excellent suggestion, Sid.
We might want to just pilot something, see if we can find one and just give it a whirl and then evaluate after that if it's the right way to go, or as you mentioned, the administrative, bureaucratic steps prevent us from being effective. It's just something a little bit, because we want to ultimately get the message. It's the parents' decision. So how do you get to the decision makers? One way is, what avenues can we get to the decision makers? Maybe it's the PTAs. Maybe it's the school districts. Maybe it's the Boys and Girls Clubs. I don't know. But maybe if we think through it a little bit differently, and again, social media, if there's a way to use that. So if you can give some thought to it, because the children's vision is a key initiative of ours.
Certainly, and I know we haven't thought about it in this way, in this kind of like PowerPoint. The parent is the decision maker, and so we've been trying to go through this bureaucratic processing. That's a really great way to look at it. In my mind, I'm like, well, why don't we, poll our, professional members, and see if there's anyone who's willing to help us create that pilot with a school district in their, in their research, their vicinity, so that we've got, an opportunity for individuals to make those connections and then develop a plan, that the pilot plan, right, of how we would go about using the PTA, using the school districts, using the Boys and Girls Clubs in that local area to start that conversation. That's my thought. And building off of Sid's thought, are there any thoughts from other committee members?
Yeah, this is Jeff. So, I agree with all of the comments that it's extremely important, but I don't know all the limitations of working through government agencies and then working with local school districts. I think that would be really challenging, because there's, each school district, each school board is going to, either accept it or not. I think that could take a lot of time and effort. If we could, and I don't know if this is even possible, if we could partner with the private sector or the COA and get some funding and get some good multimedia tidbits that we could then disseminate out to either directly from the board or COA, or from private practices, websites and social media, get it out that way. It might be simpler and a lot less expensive and probably more effective. I just think working through the government to do anything is pretty inefficient in general. So just thoughts.
It's Dave. So haven't we been beating the children's vision care horse for about 30 years at this point? It's been a long time, and there've been lots of strategies tried, and I know COA has numerous efforts to reach out on the importance of children's vision, children's eye exams. Maybe it's worth, if we haven't investigated it, speaking to some private entities. As Jeff said, going through the state might be time consuming and possibly futile. But if we go with some private groups that are currently doing examinations at schools or vision screenings at schools, maybe they have some thoughts as to how to better communicate the importance of children's vision and children's eye exams. But it just seems like this is something that's been ongoing, and we've never really made any big headway in it. And I have no idea as to how to proceed on it. But anything that we could try would be great.
So we have some different ideas, Shara, for you to mull through.
That sounds great. Yeah, we certainly haven't. I think, one of the first things that comes to mind as you were speaking, Dr. Turetsky, is the partner with the folks who were giving those services. And I think for a long time, right, we haven't worked alongside some of those entities that are doing those services. And maybe it's an opportunity for us to approach those those relationships differently and look at partnering. And now that we are going to have more mobile practice, how do we use that avenue as a communication for the policy change that we're seeking to? Okay. Can I ask what types of private entities? So the association is certainly one. Are there other types of private entities that you're thinking of, folks?
Yeah, I'm thinking of VSP. If you're talking about insurance companies or frame companies, just any private company that has a vested interest, and I'm sure, be more than willing to help. And they probably already they do have programs like that already. So I don't think we need to, like Dr. Turetsky said, recreate the wheel. I think there are a lot of programs out there already for children's vision and bringing awareness. We just, if we can jump on that bandwagon rather than try to create our own campaign, I think would be time better spent.
How do we, so I think I'm hearing, how do we use the expertise of our board members and the authority of the board name to help communicate with some increased authenticity? Maybe is that kind of what I'm, we, in partnering with private entities, we're saying, that's great, you're talking about their frames and you're going to talk about your frames, but we as the board also want to use this to let you know that, younger children should come in. So if you're in here today, if you're a 12-year-old, don't forget about your 4-year-old because they need to be here as well. And we as the board are supporting that message. I kind of being a trusted communicator, but using communication channels that are already established by those private entities. Okay.
Yeah, and even AOA has infancy. It's even reaching further down the line, but there are programs within AOA that are doing this as well.
As well as private and charitable organizations that have good name recognition and good outreach in certain sections of the state, certain parts of the state. They also have good communication with people who can provide some influence on school boards. We can certainly have an offline conversation, Dr. Turetsky. Is there anyone that any entities you want to mention here, just to give me sort of a starting place, or we of course can have that offline so that we're not jeopardizing any initial discussions with a partnership. Yeah, we should just talk offline and just run over folks that are currently doing this, and then possibly contact them and see what their messaging is, and how we can piggyback on that, or how we can adapt it for the board's communication.
Okay.
Okay, 5.7. Specific to DE&I training, as we look at better serving underrepresented communities and making sure that we have better outcomes in the future. My question to staff is, would the state's HR department or solid have DEI training we could reference that might be used, say, for another professional or technical board, and leverage it so that then we can at least look like the same family from DCA, but also customize it for our needs? The solid or the state have any DE&I training that they've given to other boards?
We're not aware of anything, but I think that those are two good resources for us to see. We're also, and so I kind of think we would make those overtures, see if there are any examples, and then make those available to the committee for review, and kind of see if there is an opportunity for us to leverage some of those and how we might leverage those. Does that sound like a good way to sort of engage and see if there's content, bring that back to committee? Of course, staff in the meantime will look at it and have some suggestions on how we might do that as well, but then bring it back to the committee and say, these are the resources we found. This is how we think we might tweak these things. And for me too, I think, right, it's with something like this, we're educating ourselves as we think about how we're educating our licensees. So I think that, you know, perhaps it's about finding those resources, making opportunities to discuss them within committee, to bring them to the board, and then, you know, kind of figure out, okay, are these things that we want to bring to licensees? Are there messages that we can pull out of here? Or kind of what do we do with the information that we've gathered? And how do we then translate that to something to help licensees and then ultimately consumers around this policy issue? Does that sort of, that's kind of how I'm thinking about it, but let me know if there are other thoughts about how we engage this big, huge topic.
This is huge. So perhaps in that broader communications plan, we phase this and we identify the different target audiences, because the trainings will likely start off similar, but then have very focused, apropos sections for that audience that we're training.
Mm-hmm.
And then what kind of resource support might we be able to get from Solid and or the HR team? Because we'll need it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can provide us with some additional information, then we'd be better positioned to guide you on that, on this one.
Definitely. Are there any thoughts about the target audiences? Are we ultimately what are the thoughts on identifying those?
I think you hit them. So if we're looking, it's not just the board, it's the professional, it's the service team, it's staff, it's really far-reaching. Dr. Garcia, Dr. Turetsky, your thoughts?
It's a challenging one for sure, but I don't see any other ways to tackle this one.
And this may be one of those multi-step action plans that is truly multi-year, because it is
And
pretty
multi-strategic
broad-based.
plan.
Yeah, exactly. Shara,
Yeah.
you hit it. This is not something that we may be able to achieve in the remaining 2+ years. In completion, we can certainly make great inroads, but to sunset this and say done, this one will take time, because it does need to be coordinated across the state.
And yeah, and be thoughtful, right? Really, and there are so many shifting opinions on, you know, what this work really includes. We have, as staff, we had some great recommendations from Dr. Kawaguchi and Dr. Wong after their attendance at the ARBO,
Great.
ARBO conference. So we've continued to follow up with the National Association of Optometrists, and they've given us some leads as well on who we might be able to rely upon for resources and support and any samples of trainings that are going on. So I think we're following up on those leads. So we'll bring that back to committee next time. What's the progress on on those partnerships?
Sure, I have a question just regarding this topic. So, you know, obviously it's important, but do we have any data that shows this is a current issue that's growing or worsening, or is it static?
I think that's a great, you know, we haven't delved into this as staff. And so it is very much cursory. And so I think a call for understanding the data. You know, I think it's going to be tough to, as we talked with the National Association of Optometrists, which is a Black American founded association, that they aren't really beginning this work. They're not doing trainings or haven't really scientifically or, you know, quantified the issues. And so I think what we're looking at really is some of the larger kind of medical profession data that might be out there about outcomes. And so perhaps one of our first action items too is to better understand the issue, right?
Yeah.
So really pulling together some of the data that has been compiled. And now my head's running to, partnerships with, but pulling together data so that we can, as a committee, discuss more intelligently, like what it is that we're trying to train on, or what it is that we're trying to improve, so that we've got a clear direction for our intent. So doing some research study and bringing some research to the committees, it sounds like it's probably one of the next things we need to do too.
Yeah, I think it's important. And again, only in my observation and doing volunteer work, like a lot of you do, working with the Lions Club. It seems, especially since Medi-Cal now covers adult services, that really decreased a lot of the demand. So we're not getting the referrals from school nurses for exams and glasses like we used to before for adult care. It's affecting the Lions Club program where we have Lions in Sight, California Lions Foundation, where surgeries are performed for uninsured and people at risk. Those referrals have gone down significantly as well because they're finding coverages in their community. So I know it's important. It is an issue, but it just seems like maybe it's potentially, in terms of eye care, maybe less of an issue today than it was 10 years ago. So that's why I was just curious if there was some other data that was pushing us the other direction. So.
Who else is doing the work to service the populations? Okay. And what are the trends that they're seeing?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yes.
It's something that I don't know if we can consider it for way down the road, probably, but for certain entities, like if you're a Medi-Cal provider seeing patients where their insurance has been assigned to VSP. VSP mandates annual cultural competency training. And if we could have some type, if the board could arrange for cultural competency training to possibly have CE units involved, I think we could get more people interested in taking that type of training. So, which covers, everything, race, religion, sexual orientation, age, everything that you could think of. And there's some valuable insights in that training. It makes you think about things that you've never thought about before based on your life experiences. And it gives you an inside view into other people's life experiences. And if we could get something like that where people would actually get a CE unit out of it, we could get some additional training for our licensees and additional empathy for the patients they serve.
Okay. So in our continued, search for partnerships, we'll reach out to VSP and try to understand their cultural competency offerings, and then potentially bring back some information on those to the committee.
Okay.
Yeah, if the Practice and Education Committee, if there is something that could go before the Practice and Education Committee, great. Maybe we could get some additional compliance with taking that type of CE. Okay. So I think I hear too that then we'll see what they offer, and maybe it's a joint meeting of CPOC and PEC to better understand what their offering is, and then how we might use that in developing some CE, CE that would count toward renewal, and then also what we could be doing on outreach from this committee in order to advance the discussion. Okay.
So we'd like this framed a little bit more.
Mhm.
And what question are we solving for? What's the problem
Yes.
we're solving for? And narrowing that down, as well as looking at it through the different lenses, literally.
Mhm.
Okay, so whether it's through the professional, our teams, et cetera. Okay. So that takes us through 9 separate tasks, if you will, or results that we are looking towards in the 2 separate goals, where we, Consumer Protection and Public Relations and Outreach Committees combined, have been asked to take the lead role. Are there other conversations, Shara and team, that have been ongoing, or any other committee meetings that may have pulled in what we do to support them?
No, I think that you're reading exactly right and recalling the will of the board that these 2 committees would really take the forefront on how we kind of scope or frame this goal and what we're doing. It has not been discussed within practice and education in this sort of like free flow way. So we will in scheduling the next practice and education meeting, we would give them a report as they're going through this same process. It would say, this was also discussed during the Consumer Protection and Outreach Committee.
Okay.
And these are the things that they have looked, better framing of the issue, and sort of, what our thoughts are here, and then, how they might suggest that we further staff work or staff research to bring back to the committees what they might need.
And a partner, so that we have complementary actions. We won't have redundancy, but we just want to make sure that we're tied together in what we're doing. Okay. All right. And I think you may have been gone during a potential discussion where we were looking at social media in new and different ways. We can circle back with you or the tape. And I can certainly get with you offline as well to further discuss. And we might be able to use our executive officer to influence. So
Sounds like there's work for me.
you might have been on your call.
We always do a debrief meeting after each of our committee meetings. So we'll chat with staff so that we each have an action plan for following up on what you all have asked for us to do, and how we might do that. So we'll go through that conversation, and then certainly I'll follow back around with you, Chair Brandwein, to make sure that I understand what the direction is and what we're looking to accomplish.
Okay, and then the last ask is based on all in totality, the asks of you and the team today across goals 4 and 5 to help prioritize the workload after you have your other committee meetings as well, so that you can manage our expectations and we can help frame some of the priorities so that it's not all being bunched up together, because we know resources are limited.
Perfect.
And then last,
recognition.
you're welcome. Yeah, definitely, because this is a pretty hefty list. And I know we went a little bit over, and you're getting ready for another board meeting, I believe, today, or committee meeting today.
We do. It doesn't start until 12:30.
You.
So yes, of course.
Okay, so thank you. We wanted to give you a little bit of a break between these meetings. Let's then, if we can, move from this to future agenda items. Anything that you would like to raise to us and/or Dr. Garcia and Dr. Turetsky?
I think we just gave plenty of future agenda items.
I know.
As a point of order, did you want to take public comment on the strategic plan, action planning discussion that you finished?
Yes,
Thank you,
we certainly
Maria.
can.
Apologies for the interruption. All right, I'll turn on the Q&A feature. Thank you. So I've got the open to Q&A feature of WebEx. If any members of the public would like to make comments on the action planning discussion, you can look for the Q&A icon at the lower right corner of your WebEx screen. Or if you're on a mobile device, click the 3-dot other options to find the Q&A button and type the word comment into the text box and hit send. And we will take comments in the order received. Each commenter will have a 2-minute time limit. I'll give people a moment to access that feature. And I see no request for public comment, so I'll close the public comment feature. Thank you.
Okay, so seeing that there is no public comment on the strategic plan, we can go ahead and move to the next agenda item if that works with everyone, which is future. To Dr. Turetsky's point, we have enough. But is there anything else that is pressing?
Nothing from
Dr. Gertz?
Yeah.
I
Thank
apologize,
you.
members, and again, being in and out today. Did we discuss potential legislative proposals for the last year of the 2021-2022? So for introduction next year, I apologize that I haven't been able to be consistent on here.
We have not.
So I wanted to make sure that we at least discuss that a bit because of the comment that we have in the items not on the agenda, and then also Dr. Garcia's interaction with licensees as well regarding the potential.
Shara,
Yes.
it's Dave. Are you talking about ledge reg stuff or?
I am, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. There it is. That's exactly what it is. Thanks, Dave. You're right, sir. That's your committee, and we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, stepping on my stuff here. I don't appreciate that.
I forgot where I was. I'm sorry, guys. All right, there we go. Yes. So I apologize.
No
My
worries.
statements.
No worries. I thought maybe there was something extra that was added that you wanted to add to the agenda somewhere. So, okay. So we'll go ahead and leave future agenda items as following up on the strategic plan discussion and the actions for each of the subtasks under the goals for those items where we've requested report packs to help guide us. And aside from that, anything from the public on a future agenda item? Do we need to open it up to them, please? Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I've opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx. It's located in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen or behind the 3 dots, other options, if you're on a mobile device. And if you'd like to make a comment on future agenda items, you can put the word comment into the text box and hit send. We'll take comments in the order received, and each person will have 2 minutes to comment. And I see no requests yet for public comments, so I'll close that feature.
Okay, thank you. I'll go ahead and adjourn the committee meeting so you can get ready for your next committee meeting. Thank you all. Have a good afternoon and upcoming weekend.
Thanks, Sid.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Jeff.
much, members.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And we will turn off the recording of the meeting now. Thank you for your attendance.